inspector raised his hand, silencing the crowd. He looked down at the battleground, where Theo stood, a determined look on his face. He announced that Theo of the Mount White sect was the winner. The crowd erupted in cheers. They had witnessed a fierce battle, a clash of skills and strategies. They had seen Theo's determination, his refusal to back down. The inspector continued, his voice carrying across the arena. The Iron Rock sect, as agreed upon, would be closed for the next 500 years. They would not be allowed to operate outside of their jurisdiction. If they were found, the provincial inspectors of both the Yan'an region and the Yang province would impose sanctions. The crowd buzzed with excitement. The Iron Rock sect, once a powerful force, was now silenced. Their ambition, their desire for power, had been defeated. Jacob, his face flushed with defeat, looked at Theo. His eyes held a spark of respect. He acknowledged Theo's skill, saying that he now understood why Theo had hidden his true abilities in the earlier fights. Jacob admitted that he had been taken by surprise by Theo's unique and unexpected attack. He was confident that he could win the next time they met, but for now the fight was over. He offered Theo a congratulations. Theo simply nodded and gave thanks in response. Jacob, with a hint of bitterness in his voice, said that a loser's words were just excuses. He turned and walked away. The crowd, however, was in a frenzy. They cheered for Theo, their voices filling the arena. They had witnessed a young alchemist, a rising star, defeat a powerful opponent. Molly, her face beaming with pride, rushed towards Theo. She had heard the news that had sent shockwaves through the Mount White sect. Theo, a mid-class law of spirit energy alchemist, had been invited to become a guest elder. She congratulated him, her voice filled with excitement. He was the first mid-class law of spirit energy alchemist to be named an elder of the Mount White sect. Theo, humbled by the honor, expressed his gratitude. He noticed Molly's eager expression, sensing that she had more to say. He asked if she had something to tell him. Molly, her eyes sparkling, explained that as a new elder, Theo would be moving to a new residence. It was the former home of Elder Seth, now vacant. She offered to lead him there. Theo followed her, ready to embrace his new role and the challenges that lay ahead. Molly pointed out the Sawun Peaks, a cluster of majestic mountains that stood next to the Chongyo Mountains. It was a place where the elders of the Mount White sect lived, a place where the air hummed with spiritual energy, where rare herbs grew, nourished by the power of the earth. Molly explained that this was Theo's new home, his new place of residence. She knew that he would thrive in this new environment. Theo, his heart filled with gratitude, thanked Molly. Molly then turned and walked away. Theo, now settled in his new home, decided to take advantage of his newfound peace and quiet. He planned to repair his graceful shield and armor, two essential pieces of his alchemic arsenal. He had some giant shadow tortoise shells and 7 silver-scaled snake scales left over from previous adventures, perfect ingredients for the task. News of Theo's victory, his improbable rise to fame, spread like wildfire through the Mount White sect. Disciples whispered about the young alchemist who had defeated 6 high-class alchemists and even a breath of the Sun alchemist. The whispers traveled beyond the sect, reaching the Yan'an province. Some believed the rumors, others scoffed. But when the truth was confirmed, it sent a ripple through the province. The news of a mid-class law of spirit energy alchemist's victory over such formidable opponents shook the foundations of the Yan'an province. Theo, with his graceful shield and armor gleaming after their repair, turned his attention to another skill, talisman crafting. He wanted to master the craft, to learn how to create precious talismans that held immense power and value. Molly arrived with news. A visitor was waiting for him. Theo's mind raced. Could it be Yona? Or perhaps Elder Dante, seeking to offer guidance? Molly, sensing Theo's curiosity, added that the visitor was someone very famous from the Yan'an province. Theo, intrigued, wondered who could possibly be seeking him out. Molly, with a hint of surprise in her voice, revealed the visitor's identity, the leader of the Huijin branch of the Xian sect. Theo's mind, buzzing with questions, couldn't help but feel a sense of intrigue. He had expected to cross paths with her again, but for her to travel all the way to his new home was unexpected. What could she possibly want? Iris congratulated him on becoming a guest elder of the Mount White sect, noting the beautiful home he had been given. She praised his victory over the Iron Rock sect, acknowledging his remarkable feat. Theo, surprised by Iris's visit, expressed his gratitude. He hadn't expected the leader of the Huijin branch to travel so far. Iris, however, brushed off his surprise, pointing out that his victory against a breath of the sun alchemist was no small feat. Iris reminded him that she hadn't heard from him since she had given him the location of the 7-silver scaled snake. She had come to visit, to see how he was doing, to see him thriving in his new role as a guest elder. Theo asked Iris about the purpose of her visit. Iris, her gaze fixed on Theo, paused for a moment before answering. She had a question that had been weighing on her mind. She couldn't understand how a mid-class law of spirit energy alchemist could achieve such a feat, how he could defeat so many powerful opponents. Iris acknowledged that Theo had mastered many intricate techniques and had many tricks up his sleeve, but even so, such a victory was almost unimaginable for someone at his level. Theo, understanding her skepticism, simply shrugged. Whether she believed it or not was entirely up to her. Iris, her eyes gleaming with a hint of mischief, stated that what Theo had accomplished was nothing short of impossible. She suspected that he had been hiding his true stage, his true level of power. She wasn't the only one who thought so. Theo, his patience wearing thin, told Iris to get to the point. He had no time for idle speculation. Iris explained that the Iron Rock sect, weakened and disgraced after its defeat, was on the verge of collapse. She had been struggling to recruit new alchemists, but now, she said, that wouldn't be a problem anymore. Iris explained that with the Iron Rock sect's fall, a large number of alchemists would be left without a home, without a sect to belong to. They would become freelancers, independent alchemists seeking new opportunities. This, she said, presented a golden chance for the Exian sect to recruit these talented individuals. Iris admitted that she had been waiting for this opportunity. The fall of the Iron Rock sect, she said, had given her a chance to do something fun. Theo, confused by her remark, couldn't help but wonder what she meant by fun. What could be so enjoyable about recruiting alchemists, especially under such circumstances? Iris revealed a secret. She spoke of a place in the Day One Nation, a place with some of the largest concentrated spirit lands. These lands, usually claimed by powerful sects, were a treasure trove of spiritual energy, a haven for alchemists. But this particular land, known as the Untraversable Poisonous Lands, was different. It was a place of danger, a place where poison lurked in every corner. Rancid poison filled the air, poisonous herbs grew rampant, venomous bugs swarmed, and deadly magical beasts roamed. Despite the dangers, the Untraversable Poisonous Lands held a powerful allure. It was a land rich with spirit stones, sacred herbs, and magical beasts, all valuable resources for alchemists. Many had ventured into the poisonous lands, seeking fortune and glory, but many had not returned. The dangers were real, the risks immense. Theo, piecing together the puzzle, realized that Iris had given him the location of the 7-silver scaled snake for a reason. She had wanted to test him, to see if he could handle the challenges posed by a venomous magical beast. She had wanted to gauge his strength. Iris simply shrugged. She left the interpretation of her actions to Theo. She then revealed a new piece of information. An alchemist had recently emerged from the poisonous lands, alive. This had drawn attention to the land, making it even more desirable. Theo couldn't help but wonder about the alchemist's survival. What had they found? What secrets had they uncovered? The alchemist who had emerged from the poisonous lands had spoken of humans living there, 100 or more, dressed in unfamiliar clothing, using unfamiliar alchemic techniques. They possessed treasures, riches beyond imagination. The Exian sect, intrigued by this revelation, had decided to gather its forces and venture into the poisonous lands. The main branch had even ordered extra troops to be sent, and Iris, eager to lead the expedition, was ready to embark on this perilous journey. Theo, however, remained unmoved. If Iris found something truly fascinating during her expedition, he said, she could come back and share her discoveries. Iris mentioned that she had heard about the Mount White sect's search for one of their senior alchemists. Theo, confirming the news, explained that 2 senior alchemists had gone missing, and the sect head was struggling to find any information about their whereabouts. Iris acknowledged the difficulty of tracking down a breath of the sun alchemist, especially one who was roaming the world. But she had received a tip, a piece of information that could potentially lead to the missing senior's whereabouts. Theo, his curiosity piqued, urged Iris to share the information. Iris revealed the tip. A breath of the sun alchemist had been spotted entering the poisonous lands, dressed in clothing similar to Gong one of the missing Mount White sect seniors. She proposed that Theo join their expedition, suggesting that he could search for traces while they explored the land. Theo, however, remained hesitant. He reasoned that if the elder had entered the poisonous lands willingly, There was no need for him to intervene. Iris, however, had a different plan. She had been hoping to avoid mentioning this. She offered him a tempting reward, the diaries of an alchemist from another continent, a manuscript filled with secrets and wisdom. The offer of such a valuable treasure made him nervous. Theo needed more information, a clear understanding of what he would be expected to do in the poisonous lands and what he would receive in return. Iris acknowledged his concerns. She promised to send someone to discuss the details later, to explain the mission and the rewards in greater depth. She also offered to send a copy of the manuscript to Theo, allowing him to examine it and assess its true value. Theo pondered the mysteries of the poisonous lands. What treasures could those people possess that would make Iris so insistent on claiming them? He had his suspicions, but he couldn't ignore the allure of the manuscript, the potential knowledge and power it held. He had to prepare, to gather his resources, to make sure he was ready for the challenges that awaited him on poisonous land. Theo, at the gates of the Yi family manor, greeted Mira with a warm smile. It had been a while since they last saw each other. Mira welcomed him back. She had heard the news of his appointment as a guest elder of the Mount White sect. Theo, in turn, acknowledged Mira's progress. She had reached the mid-class stage of heavenly earth. She attributed her success to Theo's guidance and support. Mira led Theo towards the manor. Her father and the family head were waiting for him, eager to catch up and hear about his adventures. Theo, catching up with Yona, inquired about her well-being. Yona exclaimed that he had reached the breath of the sun stage. Theo, unable to hide his amusement, admitted that he couldn't fool Yona. He then inquired about her training, knowing that she had been diligently working towards her own goals. Yona explained that she had only reached the 10th star of heavenly birth, thanks to Theo's guidance and support. Theo praised her. She had become a worthy high-class heavenly birth alchemist, a testament to her hard work and dedication. Theo, sensing a shift in the atmosphere, noticed that Mira seemed different. Something was off, something was bothering her, but no one would tell him what it was, not even the family head. He turned to Yona, hoping that she might have some insight. Yona, caught off guard by Theo's question, seemed unsure how to respond. She looked at Theo with a mixture of sympathy and amusement. Theo, confused by Yona's cryptic words, asked if she was referring to him. Yona hesitated, unsure if she should reveal the truth. Theo, sensing a looming worry, asked if he should be concerned about something. Yona, her voice filled with a mix of sympathy and concern, explained that Theo and Mira were married, but he was about to lose his wife. Theo, shocked and confused, asked for clarification. Yona revealed that Mira and Wayne had been growing closer recently and had become engaged. Wayne, a stubborn and determined, had been kicked out of the family manor by the family head several times, but he had managed to gain the family head's approval in the end. Yona, watching Theo's reaction, asked if the news had come as a shock. She knew that Theo and Mira had been a fake couple, a marriage of convenience, but she wondered if he had developed feelings for Mira over time. Theo reassured Yona that he was all right. He had not expected this. He said that he should congratulate them. Yona, taken aback by Theo's calm demeanor, questioned if he was truly okay. She had expected him to be more upset, more emotional. Theo had something important to share with Yona. He mentioned the poisonous lands, a large concentrated spirit land in the Gejong province. It was a dangerous place, filled with toxins and deadly creatures, and even he wasn't sure he would make it out alive. Yona, hearing about Theo's plans, immediately volunteered to join him. She couldn't imagine letting him go to such a dangerous place alone. Theo tried to dissuade her, explaining that the toxins in the area were too dangerous for her. He had reached the breath of the sun stage, but even for a law of spirit energy alchemist, the poisonous lands posed a significant threat. Yona, however, was determined. She couldn't let him go alone. She insisted that she could be of help, and she also needed rare sacred herbs and spirit stones to help her reach the breath of the sun stage, resources that could be found in the poisonous lands. Theo, seeing Yona's resolve, felt a pang of worry. He knew that she was stubborn and determined, and he was afraid that she might actually follow him into the dangerous territory. Theo, trying to explain the situation, revealed that his journey to the poisonous lands was related to the Mount White sect. Yona, although disappointed, understood that his loyalty to the sect came first. Theo, wishing he could have Yona by his side, explained that he would have loved to have her accompany him if this wasn't a matter related to the sect. He knew that she was a skilled alchemist and a loyal friend, but this was a mission that required him to act alone. Yona, feeling down, acknowledged that she couldn't interfere with a sect matter. She reminded him that it would have been different if it was during the times of the Iron Sphere sect, a time when they had fought together as equals. Theo, understanding Yona's disappointment, realized that there was no way to avoid this. He knew that Iris was involved in this expedition, and he couldn't predict what might happen. The poisonous lands were a dangerous place, and it would be better if Yona didn't tag along. He was concerned for her safety, and he knew that this mission could quickly become unpredictable. Theo, wanting to shift the mood from the seriousness of the previous conversation, brought up the Iron Sphere sect. He reminisced about their time together, their shared experiences, and suggested a friendly sparring match. He had a new technique he wanted to show Yona, a skill he had developed since reaching the Breath of the Sun stage. Yona, always eager to test her skills against Theo's, readily agreed. She was curious about the power of the Breath of the Sun stage, and a sparring request from Theo was always welcome. Theo, standing at the edge of the poisonous lands. The air was thick with a noxious gas, a choking cloud that obscured the view. A man, part of the Exian sect expedition, pointed towards the entrance, explaining that the poisonous fog would be difficult to navigate. He reassured the group that the Breath of the Sun alchemists would be unaffected by the toxins, but the Law of Spirit Energy alchemists would feel discomfort. He offered a detoxifying elixir to counteract the effects of the poison, a small measure of protection in this dangerous territory. Theo knew that the man was with the Exian sect, sent by Iris to guide them through this dangerous territory. This, he realized, was another reason not to trust the man. He recalled his conversation with Iris introducing the guide. This is Alan. He is with the Exian sect. He is a poison specialist and has experienced the poisonous lands before, so he will be of great help. He will guide everyone through the lands. Theo checked the memoirs that Rachel had given him. He couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. He couldn't shake the feeling that Iris was hiding something. Theo was surprised to hear a familiar voice. Jacob, recognizing Theo, greeted him warmly. He was relieved to see him. Theo, returning the greeting, expressed his own surprise. He asked Jacob what brought him to the poisonous lands. Jacob, now a freelance alchemist, explained that he had followed his brother, Calvin, to this dangerous place. Calvin, a former member of the Iron Sphere sect, chimed in. He was one of the best in the Iron Sphere sect, but he wondered what would have happened if he and Jacob had sparred. Calvin teased him about holding on to past grudges. Jacob, laughing, assured him that he had moved on. Calvin explained that this trip was going to be lucrative. Lord Iris was known for buying and selling information, which meant that she valued trust. If they successfully navigated the poisonous lands, they would be rewarded with a large amount of spirit stones. Calvin, pointing out another member of the group, mentioned that there was another Breath of the Sun alchemist among them. He recalled his named Paul. He remembered that he was clean-shaven, likely due to a special type of alchemy that had burned off all of his hair. Theo, observing the clean-shaven man, thought he seemed quiet and unreadable. He couldn't figure out what was going on in his mind. Theo, deciding to get his detoxificant, excused himself from the group. He was eager to delve into the poisonous lands, but he knew that he had to be cautious. Calvin suggested that they all get some detoxificant, just in case. He then announced that he would lead the way, urging the others to follow behind him. He explained that he planned to collect sacred herbs and hunt while keeping a lookout for danger. He asked if anyone objected to his plan. The others readily agreed. The group, following close behind, felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. They were entering a world of danger and opportunity. Jacob, watching Theo's movements, commented on his increased strength since their last encounter. Theo acknowledged his progress. Jacob mentioned that he was quite skilled with a sword as well. Theo, humbled by the compliment, replied that Jacob was praising him too much. He admitted that if Jacob had gone all out, he would have lost. Jacob, chuckling, returned the compliment, thanking Theo for his kind words. Theo, however, insisted that he wasn't trying to flatter Jacob. He was simply stating the truth. The group, moving cautiously through the poisonous lands, was startled by a sudden shout. An elder, his face contorted in pain. Alan rushed to his side, examining the elder's hand. Calvin, concerned, asked what was happening. The elder, his voice trembling, pointed to his hand. Alan, examining the wound, diagnosed the problem. He pointed to a nearby plant. It may look like harmless grass, but it's poisonous. But thankfully, he carried an antidote for its poison. Theo, observing the scene, realized that the prickly thorn grass was a dangerous poison plant, capable of harming even a Law of Spirit Energy alchemist. He was surprised that it didn't affect him. He decided to collect some of the plant, just in case it could be useful later. Jacob, noticing Theo's reaction, asked why the poison didn't affect him. Theo explained that he had built up an immunity to various poisons over time. He also had some knowledge of poisonous plants which helped him avoid their dangers. Jacob, relieved to hear this, admitted that he was worried about having only one person to rely on for poison knowledge. He was glad that Theo might be of help. Theo, however, downplayed his abilities. He assured Jacob that he wouldn't be much help. Theo, scanning the group, counted the alchemists. He noticed that there were 15 Law of Spirit Energy alchemists and 3 Breath of the Sun alchemists. He tried to figure out who was missing, but the thick fog made it difficult to see clearly. Something felt off. A sense of unease settled over him. Just then, Calvin, sensing danger, shouted a warning. "Everyone on guard," he yelled. "Get prepared for battle." Calvin, seeing the approaching danger, urged the group to stick close together. Jacob, his eyes sharp, spotted the approaching threat. "Here they come," he shouted. The group, seeing the swarm of magic bugs, panicked. They were small, but their numbers were overwhelming. They buzzed and hissed, their eyes glowing with an eerie light. The alchemists, caught off guard, cried out in alarm. They had never encountered such a large swarm of magic bugs before. They pleaded with their seniors to make a decision, to either fight or retreat. Calvin, assessing the situation, realized that they were outnumbered. He commanded to retreat and stay close to each other. The group, fleeing from the swarm of magic bugs, was struggling to maintain their formation. Calvin, realizing that the swarm was larger and more aggressive than he had anticipated. Calvin knew that magic bugs were known to travel in swarms, but this was different. This swarm was too large, too organized. If they fought, they wouldn't stand a chance. But then he noticed something alarming. The magic bugs were moving faster than he thought, closing in on them with terrifying speed. He called out to Jacob, knowing that he was one of the strongest alchemists in the group. They needed to fight, there was no other choice. Jacob, hearing Calvin's call, responded that was ready to face the swarm. Calvin, realizing that the magic bugs were gaining on them, turned to Alan the guide, hoping for some insight. He asked if Alan knew anything about them. Alan had never seen magic bugs like this before. If he had encountered them in the past, he wouldn't have survived. Calvin, understanding that there was no other option, shouted orders. The magic bugs were closing in, and they had to make a stand. He instructed the Law of Spirit Energy alchemists to stand behind him, with Jacob and Paul flanking him. He explained that while they didn't know much about these magic bugs, one thing was certain: bugs were weak to flames. He urged those who had mastered the art of yang, the technique that harnessed heat and flames, to use it without hesitation. The alchemists, understanding the gravity of the situation, responded with a resounding, "Yes, sir." Calvin, standing at the front of the group, turned to Jacob and Paul. He asked them if they were ready. Theo, standing in a defensive stance, his hands glowing with flames, was prepared for the onslaught. Calvin, seeing that everyone was ready, shouted, "Here we go!" With a roar, the alchemists unleashed their power. Calvin, Jacob, and Paul, the 3 Breath of the Sun alchemists, unleashed their true samadhi fire. Blazing flames erupted from their palms, engulfing the swarm of magic bugs. The bugs, caught off guard by the intense heat, began to sizzle and burn. The Law of Spirit Energy alchemists, following their lead, unleashed their own flames. They used their yang techniques, channeling their spirit energy into fiery blasts that incinerated the bugs. Theo, watching the battle unfold, realized that the spiral bombs, a powerful spell designed to incinerate enemies, were not working against the magic bugs. He recognized them as golden-toothed locusts, a type of insect known for its voracious appetite. They could chew through anything, even metal. He was horrified to see that the locusts were chewing through his spirit barrier. There seemed to be no end to them. Theo, realizing that he needed to act quickly, used his frost technique. He unleashed a wave of freezing energy, slowing the locusts down. He had managed to buy himself some time, but he was still puzzled. How were the locusts able to fly at such a speed? They shouldn't be able to catch up to the Law of Spirit Energy alchemists. The battle was becoming more desperate. The alchemists were struggling to hold back the swarm, and the locusts were relentless. The alchemists, struggling to hold back the swarm of golden-toothed locusts, cried out for help. They were overwhelmed, their defenses failing. They pleaded with their seniors, begging for assistance. They couldn't hold on much longer. They were exhausted, their spirit energy depleted, and the locusts were relentless. Theo, watching the carnage unfold, felt a surge of despair. He knew that if they didn't act quickly, everyone would die. He had to find a way to stop the locusts. Theo, realizing that the situation was dire, decided to use his formation spell. He knew that he wouldn't be able to get his hands on the memoirs he was seeking if everyone died. He couldn't let these insects wipe out the entire group. He used his imaginary element formation spell, creating a protective barrier around himself. He then called out to the remaining alchemists, his voice amplified by his spell. "Can everyone hear me?" he shouted. "Follow my voice and make your way towards me. You'll be safe here." The alchemists, hearing Theo's voice, felt a flicker of hope. They were disoriented, exhausted, and terrified, but they clung to the hope that Theo could save them. They stumbled through the swarm, their eyes fixed on Theo's barrier, their ears straining to hear his voice. The old man, caught in the swarm of golden-toothed locusts, was struggling to fight them off. Theo, seeing the old man's struggle, called out to him. He instructed him to calm down, get rid of his spirit barrier, and wait right here. The old man, safe within the barrier, looked at Theo with gratitude. The remaining alchemists, huddled inside Theo's protective barrier, breathed a sigh of relief. They had escaped the onslaught of golden-toothed locusts, their lives spared by Theo's quick thinking and powerful spell. Jacob, his face etched with both relief and awe, approached Theo. "Is this your doing?" he asked, gesturing towards the barrier. Theo replied that it was a little something he had created. Jacob, impressed, commented that everyone was safe thanks to Theo. He praised Theo's skills, not only in training but also in technique creation. Theo counted the survivors. Only 9 Law of Spirit Energy alchemists had made it out alive. He had not anticipated such a dangerous situation. He had been confident in his skills, but he had underestimated the ferocity of the golden-toothed locusts. Calvin approached Theo. He had witnessed Theo's incredible skill in protecting the group from the swarm of golden-toothed locusts. He knew that Theo was a skilled alchemist, but he was constantly surprised by his abilities. He expressed his sincere thanks to Theo, acknowledging that he had saved their lives. He urged Theo to keep doing his best, even though the journey ahead would be difficult. Theo, accepting Calvin's gratitude, nodded in agreement. He assured Calvin that he would do his best. Calvin, his frustration growing, turned to Alan. He was angry. He wanted to know how long Alan had been in the poisonous lands. Alan replied that he had been there for about 3 months. Calvin asked if Alan had ever encountered a situation like this before. Alan, his voice low, admitted that this was the first time he had faced something like this. He had never seen a swarm of golden-toothed locusts like that before. Calvin, sighing in exasperation, muttered that this was going to be a pain in the ass. He decided to let Alan off the hook for now, but he was clearly disappointed. Jacob, watching Calvin's troubled expression, approached him. He asked if Calvin planned to continue their journey. Calvin, unsure of what to do, hesitated. He wasn't entirely sure if they should continue. Jacob, sensing Calvin's hesitation, pressed further. He had never worked with Lord Iris before, and he wondered why Calvin was having second thoughts. Calvin, taking a deep breath, explained that if it was any other lord, it wouldn't matter much, but this was different. He leaned in, lowering his voice to a whisper. He revealed that Lord Iris was the daughter of the Lord of the Exian sect. Theo, surprised by Calvin's revelation that Iris was the daughter of the Lord of the Exian sect. He understood why she held such a high position, despite her youth and lack of skills. It was all thanks to her powerful lineage. Jacob understood why Calvin was so hesitant to continue their journey. Calvin explained that it would be burdensome to call off something that Lord Iris had organized. He knew that she hated it when things didn't go her way, and she was very particular about how things were done. Calvin, watching the swarm of golden-toothed locusts retreat, felt a surge of relief. The flames unleashed by the alchemists had worked. The technique had an effect on the insects. He turned to Alan the guide, and addressed him with a serious tone. He knew that Alan was an alchemist from the Exian sect, and he wanted to make sure that Alan understood the gravity of the situation. He told Alan that if something similar happened again, he would not continue the journey. He would leave the poisonous lands at once. Even Iris couldn't complain about that. Alan assured Calvin that he would keep that in mind. Theo knew that Iris had brought Paul and Alan to the poisonous lands, and he suspected that she might have ulterior motives. He decided to be on guard just to be safe. Calvin, sensing the tension in the group, decided to address the elephant in the room. He announced that they would continue searching the poisonous lands. He acknowledged that the journey was dangerous, and he understood if anyone wished to head back. He would not stop them. However, he warned them that he could not guarantee their safe return if they left on their own. He paused, giving the alchemists a chance to speak. But the alchemists remained silent. They had witnessed the dangers of the poisonous lands firsthand, and they were unsure whether they were willing to risk their lives further. Calvin, seeing the hesitation in the group, decided to take charge. He announced that if something like the attack by the golden-toothed locusts happened again, he and Jacob would give up the search and leave the poisonous lands. Until then, they would lead the way. The alchemists were willing to trust Calvin and Jacob to follow their lead and to continue their journey. Calvin, looking at the meager results of their search, sighed. He was disappointed. He had put in a lot of effort and the rewards were minimal. He felt like it wasn't worth the risk. Jacob, sensing Calvin's frustration, spoke up. He had been reading Calvin's mind, and he understood his feelings. Calvin admitted that there was no other way. He had to keep going. He had to find the treasures of the poisonous lands people. He had to make this journey worth it. Theo, reflecting on the journey so far, felt a sense of urgency. He knew that more than a month had already passed. They had lost 2 Law of Spirit energy alchemists, leaving only 10 remaining. He had been diligently collecting sacred herbs and spirit stones, but it wasn't enough. And the people of the poisonous lands, the ones Lord Iris had mentioned, were nowhere to be seen. Alan, looking at Theo with a suspicious glint in his eyes, commented that the journey was a bit boring. Theo, taken aback by Alan's comment, was confused. He couldn't believe that Alan would call this place boring. He knew that the poisonous lands were full of danger, and he was constantly on edge. Alan explained that Lord Iris had said that unless they were faced with the people of the poisonous lands, there was nothing that would be a challenge to them. He then added that he now understood why Theo was different from the other Law of Spirit energy alchemists. Theo, sensing that Alan was being deliberately provocative, was suspicious. He knew that Alan was trying to get a reaction out of him. He simply stated that he thought Alan had heard the wrong thing from the wrong person. He then asked Alan why he had suddenly decided to make small talk with him. Alan explained that many men had been sent to the poisonous lands from various sects and branches. He revealed that the reason for this was because of some descendants. He then whispered the name, the descendants of the Valley of Secrets. He confirmed that they were the people of the poisonous lands, and that they were the ones they were searching for. Theo, watching Alan closely, noticed something strange. His hands seemed to be getting darker each time he saw them. It was unnerving. He couldn't explain it, but he felt a sense of unease. Alan, continuing his unsettling monologue, revealed that the name of the descendants of the Valley of Secrets had been erased from history. No one knew of them. Theo, confused and suspicious, asked how Alan knew about them if no one knew of their existence. Alan, with a smug grin, dismissed Theo's question. He said that if Lord Iris hadn't told him, there was no need for him to reveal it. Theo, feeling like he was being deliberately misled, was frustrated. He was certain that Alan was withholding information, but he didn't know how to get him to reveal it. Alan dismissed himself as a lowly being who knew nothing. But then, with a sinister glint in his eyes, he revealed that the core forces from the Exian sect had already made their move a month ago. Theo couldn't believe that Alan had waited a month to tell him this. Alan, amused by Theo's reaction, simply laughed. He explained that they weren't part of the core forces, so there was no need for him to tell Theo earlier. Theo realized the implications of Alan's words. If the core forces had already made their move a month ago, then the chances of them getting the memoirs were slim. He had been tricked, and he had been wasting his time. Theo, fuming with anger, told Alan that if seniors Jacob and Calvin heard this, they would be furious for having been deceived. Alan, unfazed by Theo's anger, denied that they had deceived anyone. He said that nothing would change even if Theo told them. He then added that things would have gotten complicated if Jacob and Calvin were still in the Iron Rock sect. But since they had left, they didn't have the power to complain. Theo, furious and confused, asked Alan if Lord Iris had told him to say all those things. Alan, with a smug grin, confirmed that she had. Theo, despite his anger and frustration, knew that he needed to find a way to get to the core forces. So, he asked Alan if he could bring him to where the core forces were. Alan, ever the manipulator, played coy. He said that he would bring Theo if he asked nicely. Alan called out to Calvin. Calvin asked what was going on. Alan, with a confident tone, said that the fog was a little thick, but he recognized the road. He believed that he could lead the way from there. Calvin, surprised by Alan's sudden confidence, asked if he was sure he could lead the way. Alan said that he believed that this could help them find traces of the people of the poisonous lands. Calvin, relieved to hear that Alan might be able to help them, agreed. He told Alan to go on. Alan turned and started walking. He was ready to lead the way. The group continued their journey, following Alan's lead. Theo felt a growing sense of unease. He remembered this road from the chant of black ice, and he knew that it led to a place that was shrouded in mystery. Alan's confidence only confirmed his suspicions. Despite his suspicions, Theo had to admit that Alan was leading the way well, even though the fog was blocking their sight. Calvin, overjoyed to find a suitable place to rest, expressed his relief. He was happy to have found a safe haven, and he was eager to rest and recharge. The alchemists, exhausted from their journey, settled in for the night. They knew that they had a long and difficult journey ahead of them, but they were also grateful for the opportunity to rest. Theo, despite his exhaustion, felt a sense of urgency. He knew that they didn't have time to spare. He had to find a way to uncover the truth, to find the core forces, and to protect himself. So, he decided to sneak off while the others were resting. Suddenly, Jacob, who had been observing Theo, spoke up. He asked Theo where he was going. Theo, caught off guard, said that he was just going to look around a bit. Jacob, sensing that Theo was hiding something, offered to join him. Theo, surprised by Jacob's offer, hesitated for a moment. He wasn't sure if he wanted Jacob to know what he was up to, but he couldn't refuse his offer. He said that it was fine with him if Jacob joined. Jacob, sensing Theo's hesitation, decided to back off. He told Theo that he didn't seem very welcoming of the idea of him joining, so he would leave him be. He reminded Theo that he knew how skilled he was, but he also reminded him that they were in the poisonous lands. Theo assured Jacob that he would keep that in mind. Theo, feeling a sense of relief at being alone, scanned the area. He couldn't sense the presence of any other alchemists, so he felt safe enough to explore. He took a deep breath and jumped, enjoying the freedom of being alone. He then used the sacred needle of wisdom, which pointed towards the west. He decided to follow its guidance, feeling a sense of excitement and anticipation. He noticed a strange energy. The air was thick with spirit power, which was unusual for the poisonous lands. He realized that this meant there must be a deadly poison nearby. He followed the scent of a strong, intoxicating aroma. He was drawn to it, and he knew that he had to find its source. Theo saw a beautiful flower. It was a supreme chrysanthemum, a precious poison herb. It was a rare and valuable find, and he was overjoyed to have stumbled upon it. He knew that he had to be careful. The supreme chrysanthemum was deadly, but it was also a powerful ingredient for many alchemical concoctions. He decided to collect it, knowing that it would be a valuable asset to his team. He was grateful for his good fortune. Theo sensed something nearby. He cautiously approached, expecting to find another valuable herb or a hidden treasure. He was surprised to find a deer, a gentle creature that seemed out of place in the harsh poisonous lands. He decided to collect the supreme chrysanthemum, carefully extracting it from the ground. He didn't want to damage its precious roots, knowing that they held the most potent part of the poison. As he was collecting the flower, he noticed something strange. He wondered how a normal animal could survive in the poisonous lands. He looked around, but the deer was gone. He couldn't believe his eyes. He had just seen it and now it was gone. Suddenly, the deer reappeared, leaping from behind a bush. It snatched the supreme chrysanthemum from Theo's hand. Theo, shocked and furious, shouted in anger. He couldn't believe that a deer would steal from him.